Hello, this is Andrew with $1,000,000Bike, and today we're going to talk about Di2. Whether it's worth it, what are the pros and cons, all that stuff. So this bike, this is my road bike. It has Ultegra Di2 on it. There are also Di2 systems. The Dura-Ace is a Di2 system for gravel. I believe it's the 815, and there's also Di2 for a mountain bike. There are pluses and minuses for Di2. The big one that most people talk about when they talk about like why Di2 is better is because the shifting performance is better. And not gonna lie, it is better. There's really no equivocation around that. Shifting is better. Shifting is better and quieter. Some of that comes down to that you can make micro adjustments. With derailleurs that you can't, it's just not possible to get that level, the same level of precision when adjusting the front and rear mechs on a mechanical system. And that makes it quieter. It also makes the shifting better, but we're really just talking about a small amount. So if 10 is perfect shifting, call Di2 9.8, 9.9, where mechanical is 9.4, 9.5, something like that. So it's better, but it's not light years better. Di2 is a lot more flexible though than a mechanical system, and you can run any modern Di2 part with any other modern Di2 part. So if you want to run road or gravel Di2 shifters and a mountain bike rear mech, you can do that. So you can add, you have a tremendous flexibility to build the bike the way that you want it to be, that you don't have with mechanical. You cannot run mountain bike rear derailleur with mechanical shifters, mechanical road shifters. I also like that the hoods are smaller, and this is kind of a personal preference thing, although smaller hoods should be slightly more aero. So this is a personal preference thing, so if you like the bigger hoods of the mechanical, you might like that. Whereas I really like the way that my hand just kind of fits in here, and I can get it like that and just ride, or like that and just ride. It's a little just more comfortable because of the size of my hand to put it on the hood, on these hoods versus the mechanical hood. The biggest thing though for me in the pro category for Di2 is the extra data that you get when you use the wireless D-Fly component. Mine is in the stem here. I would recommend putting it somewhere inside the bike so that it's not external and can get disconnected. The stem is a great place if you have the kind of handlebars where you can route the cable into the stem and then back out again. Otherwise, I'd put it in the frame itself. But the thing is, you get data. So like right here, it tells me the gears that I'm in. So right now I'm in 3413, and you can set it up so that it beeps when you hit the either side of the rear cassette, so you know when you run out of gears. It's not super important on the flat, but when you're climbing, it's really, really nice to know where you're at and how much space you have left. The other thing is that there are buttons here. These are 3 stage buttons actually. So there's a press, a double press, and then a long press, I think. Definitely the single press and double press. And I have these set up so that if I push it, it changes the page on the Garmin. And it works like this on the Wahoo too. And then I also have it set up so if I double press, it moves back a page. So I can just move through all of the pages on my Garmin just by using one of the hoods. And I have this one set up in the opposite way so that this one, so if I move forward, this one moves it back. And then a double press moves it forward. The other thing that the D-Fly gets you, so you go to the next page, is it gives you reportable battery status. Well, it actually gives you reportable system status, where one of those things is the battery level. So you can see here I have 100% charge level on the Di2 system, and I'm currently in shift mode 1. The shift modes are pretty neat. Shift mode 1 is the semi-automatic system, and then shift mode 2 is the fully automatic system. And that's something you also don't get with mechanical, where the semi-automatic, when you drop you go up or down on the front chainring, it moves the rear mech in a programmable way up or down the cassette. So you kind of like end up in the gear ratio, in the right gear ratio that you want. Instead of, when you're on mechanical, you drop down on the front ring or into the small ring, you're either spinning because you're in the wrong gear in the back, or in anticipation of dropping that down, you've cranked yourself up the cassette so that you're grinding, and then you end up in the right place. So just a much smoother transition using this versus mechanical. And that's really neat. It's great when you're, again, out climbing, not super useful out on the flat when you only ever use the small ring to store the bike. The fully automated system, I don't really like that, but you can basically set it up so that you use one shifter to just move up and down, and it fully automates going up and down the front chainring as well. I don't like that, but it is really neat, and I imagine that some people really, really like that. And of course, again, you can't do that with mechanical. So let's talk about cons. There's a battery. The battery needs to be charged. If you don't charge the battery, you're screwed. There again, you can mitigate that somewhat with a D-fly because you can see the status, but if you don't have the D-fly, which most systems in default don't come with that, then you don't know what the charge is, and you just kind of have to guess. So that can be, inconvenient, let's just say it that way. It's expensive. It's quite a bit more money than the mechanical for marginal gains in shifting. So if you're not going to use the D-fly, in my opinion, then I'm not sure that the extra cost is worth it. Also, because it's electronic, it's a lot more difficult to troubleshoot if there is an issue. I haven't had any real problems with mine, but the potential certainly exists. Whereas with mechanical, it's a much simpler system, so it's much easier to troubleshoot, and you can do it all yourself, assuming that you're reasonably handy. There's only so many things that can go wrong. Cable tension, cables need replacing. That's about it. I also have concerns around running Di2 in really nasty weather. Part of this is because the components are just, so much more expensive that when you're running them in mud and snow and ice and all that stuff, you're almost certainly reducing the longevity of the component because it freezes, you have to wash it. I have had it get so bad where I can't shift the front derailleur and I have to cut ice off the bike with the hose. Now, that of course kind of depends on how you're going to use your bike, but I use my gravel bike as in my all-weather bike. If it's horrible outside, that's the bike I choose because it's still fun to go ride your bike in the snow. It's actually, I would highly recommend that. Go ride your bike in the snow. Make sure you have the right tires, but go ride your bike in the snow. It's awesome. But like all of that snow and ice and salt and nasty almost certainly reduces the life, almost certainly has a lower toll on a mechanical component than an electronic component because there's no electronics, right? There's nothing to short out. And if you hose it down and, to get the ice off and then dry it off with an air compressor, you're pretty much done. Whereas if you're blowing water past the seals of the electronic component, bad stuff can happen. You can short the thing out. So I have mixed feelings about riding or putting Di2 on a bike that I'm going to use in really terrible conditions. And that's pretty much it. So for road, summarized, for road, I would highly recommend it if you're going to use the data. And then, these buttons and the extra data that you get from it. Whereas on gravel, I have very mixed feelings. In my use case, I don't think that it's a good fit. But if you have a different gravel use case, then it could be a good fit or it could not be a good fit. Anyway, I hope you found that useful. If you did, go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions or comments, drop them below and I will get to them as soon as I can. Thanks.